This is the When Work Isn't Work podcast. This podcast exists to help people reignite the love of what they do in a post-pandemic world. The pandemic gave us a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to reflect on what is truly important to us in work and in life. I'm your host, Sinead Connolly, co-founder and director of Lotus People, an award-winning Sydney-based recruitment agency. We hope you enjoy today's chat. Today, I am very excited to take this episode inside the Lotus People offices. My guests today are Chloe Jones and Iona Colville. Chloe is a temporary recruitment consultant here at Lotus, and Iona has recently been promoted to Divisional Manager of both the perm team and the HR team. As well as both being driven, ambitious, and fantastic at their jobs, they are both wonderful human beings, and I am so excited for everyone to hear this chat. Welcome to you both.
That was stunning. Thank you.
Thank you for joining the When Work Isn't Work podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Congratulations to you, Iona, on your recent promotion.
Thank you. I am absolutely over the moon.
It's very
excited.
I was about to say, very exciting times. Very good indeed. We have a lot to cover. I am very excited about this conversation, very excited about this chat. It's also lovely that we're all in the same room, which means that there's the human interaction component that we often miss. I guess what I wanted to start with each of you, because similar to me, similar to many people who've been on this podcast, you guys have obviously had the journey from the UK to Australia. So I'd like to know a little more about that journey before we get into the career and the work stuff. Chloe, can you talk us through your journey? What brought you to Sydney? How did you end up here? How long have you been here? Talk us through.
Yeah, so I've been here for 5.5 years now, but it's actually funny like how I've never actually thought about being in Sydney before. Like it's never not something that I've thought to do, never thought to be away from home. Like I'm such a homebody. And I was in my job in London for like 8 years, and I joined straight after college, didn't go to uni. And about 5 years into it, I done a lot of work with the US in the New York branch, and there was like talks of me going over there, and it was like this whole back and forth thing for about a year. And then it like fully fell through, and I was like, I went to like New York like 3 times that year to try and like figure out like what I can do to try and move there. And then that was, I think the visa thing was just so hard. And then I went to Bali on a trip on my own for 3 weeks and done like a group tour. I've met some friends that I'm still like friends with now. And so many of them were living in Sydney or Melbourne. Oh. And so I was like, I'm going to come back.
I love that.
I come back, I've not been there, but they were all going back to Sydney and Melbourne. So I was like, why am I going back home? So I literally went home. I think I resigned. I remember taking my mum for dinner. I was like, I'm going to Sydney.
Resigned from your mum. Resigned, took your mum to dinner.
Resigned from the job. And but I took 3 months notice. There was this like 3 months of like rockiness, like, what have I done?
That's too long to contemplate your future decisions when you've made such a bold move.
Hell, but yeah, it's honestly like the best move I've ever made. I thought I'd last 6 months, but here I am.
Good on you. That's actually so funny about New York, because it made me think whenever I've spoken about the Lotus story, I always leave this bit out because it feels irrelevant. But Laura and I, when we were first talking about setting up Lotus, we were going to do it in New York.
Could you imagine if I was like an employee?
Can you imagine? That would have been. It would have happened. The universe would have made it happen in our sliding doors lives. But we were, and it was the reason that we didn't is because of visas and our partners partners at the time, and the pair of us were like committed to moving to New York. We were in immigration lawyers' offices. We were literally like mapping out the recruitment market in New York. Like it was literally similar to you, going to be that kind of bold move across to New York, and America made it too hard to get a green card, and so also ended up in Australia. So there you go. I love that.
When I first come here as well, I was like, I'm moving here to find an American boyfriend, so then I can go to America. And they were like, what are you doing?
That's a long game strategy, isn't it? Oh, I love that. And I love that I didn't know lots of that. So thank you for sharing that. Iona, you did a bit of a roundabout world trip before you got to us, didn't you? Before you got to Sydney.
Yeah, I was here before.
Yes.
So I was in Sydney. I came out in my working holiday visa at 22. I intended on coming here, so it didn't happen by chance. Travelled around, did the whole East Coast, worked in a gazillion different call centres in that year, moving around. Then I was with 3 friends at the time, and after the first year, they all decided to go back to Scotland. And I would have, I would have liked to have gone back, but I didn't have enough money. So I was like, right, what do I do? Like, where's the cheapest place for me to get to and like that's viable? So I ended up in New Zealand, and I was only meant to go there in between visas, just for like a break. So I didn't just go straight into my second year. And it was meant to be 3 or 6 months, and I was there for 5-6 years, and only came back to Australia last year.
Isn't that so funny? That's a proper detour, isn't it? Like, I just have 3 months, and then suddenly it's like, whoa, where did the years go? And I feel like that's a common story of, like, my own story, like your story, Chloe. It's a common story of how people end up in Sydney as well. It's like when we, as expats, move away, it's like you kind of get in somewhere, you have your formative years there, you get the job, you get the career, you get the friends, and you're like, oh, I'm still here. Like, for me, it's 13 years in December, and I'm like, how is that 13? Like, where has that happened?
I still feel like new to here. Out of interest, do you prefer
Chloe's taking over?
Sydney? No, sorry, do you like how are you preferring Sydney to New Zealand?
I mean, the weather's better.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you'd hope she'd say a lot more, seeing as we have her now.
I mean, New Zealand, I mean, I could have been at home half the time.
Yeah,
so what's the point in being this far away when the weather's like that?
Yeah. And that brings us to recruitment. So you, and I feel like this podcast, obviously it's all about the sort of post-pandemic life of when work isn't work. I think if I tried to say to either of you that work not being work, you'd tell me to go and shite, because obviously you both flog yourselves, and we all flog ourselves here at Lotus. So it's not like it doesn't feel like work every day. It most certainly does. But inevitably on this podcast, we talk a lot about recruitment, because of course that is a common theme. You found your way to New Zealand and found your way into recruitment, and that's sort of what kept you there, I suppose, in terms of your career. Talk me through that.
So I was probably one of the minorities where I actually knew I wanted to do recruitment.
Whoa!
Of course you did.
So I did HR at uni, and I really enjoyed the recruitment and selection side of it.
Yeah.
I like the idea of like the reward you would get by getting someone a job. And I just kind of latched onto that a little bit.
Amazing. And
then I finished uni, and I went to work in a call centre for 10 months, moved back home while I saved to come out to Australia. And as soon as I arrived in the call centre, they said, right, we actually need to start recruiting like full groups of call centre people, or whatever we were, agents. And they were like, do you have a degree? And I was like, yeah, in HR. And they were like, right. And I ended up for that full year pretty much doing like the full end-to-end recruitment for them, and then that's when I was like, oh, quite like this. I was like walking around the call centre like 21 with a clipboard, like you can just picture
I can picture
and
that.
I thought I was the bee's knees, and I thought I was fab, and I just was like, oh, I like this.
And now, what did I say earlier? She's been promoted to a multiple divisional manager.
Yeah, I know. I was my calling.
Where's her clipboard?
I know. I need to get one, but I thought
We're gonna get you on that.
If anyone from my old work hears this, like, oh God. And then I just sort of did my whole traveling thing. Like, I drove a tractor at one point.
Yeah.
So I was call center sales naturally. Like, I was quite good at that. And then I met someone on a camping trip, and they said, I work in recruitment. I said, can you get me a job? And she got me a job.
There you go. You manifested a recruitment career.
Well, I went for
a camping trip.
I said, it's about time I went to do what I want to do now. Like, I don't want to work in a call centre anymore. And she said, I work in recruitment. I said, right, great. Can you set up a meeting? And
there you go. And that was you for how many years in New Zealand?
In that job, 4 years.
In that job, 4 years, yeah. And what was the tipping point even of coming to Sydney for you? Because obviously you're still in recruitment and have been progressing and have had an amazing career both in New Zealand and here. What was it? I mean, I know this because I interviewed you, but do tell our listeners.
It was definitely a location thing for me. Like, I did actually love my last job. I had a great experience. Got on really well with everyone. It was a great place to work for me personally. But it was a weather thing. It was a location thing. I wanted to move somewhere where I could see myself long term. And where I was in Wellington in New Zealand, like every time you left the house, you'd be battered by the wind. Like, it was cold. It was
exactly like Scotland.
Exactly. What? It's not even windy here at all. Like, it's known to be called Windy Wellington.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was just kind of like, and you know, there was earthquakes and things. That wasn't really. It was fine. Like
There's a couple.
There's a few shows.
Makes the news.
But no, it was that, and I just wanted to make sure, because I like the benefit of recruitment is like long term, like longevity. If you're in that, if you embed yourself in the market, and I said, well, I'm either just going to stay here forever, or I'm going to make a move, and I'm going to put the effort in, and I'm going to embed myself in a place that I really see myself long term. And here I am. Yeah,
and here you are, and hopefully you'll be at Lotus long term, because it's bloody brilliant having you here.
Thank you.
No, it's an amazing story, and I think it's I think as expats, the thing we probably do is at some point we tip from just kind of going with the flow and going with the wind and just landing somewhere and seeing what happens, to actually then making a conscious effort of like, okay, I'm settled. And now what's a considered career choice, and what do I want to do? And like you start putting that more mature, late 20s, early 30s, and on and on. Like, what am I doing with my life, essentially? So that obviously has a part to play in all of our journeys. And what about you, Chloe? I know your story as well, but I'm sure there's parts that I'm not aware of. But recruitment, you did fall into it. You've had a journey with it. You're obviously thriving in your role now. So tell us how you got there.
So I originally went into a 5-month contract role with BT Private, that part of Westpac, because that was like my first job out here that I actually got through reporters as well. And then after that, I went to Bali. No, I went to Thailand and done like 6 weeks travel, and then to Sri Lanka, and then I was flying back. And before I went, I'd met with a few recruiters, and one of the recruiters that I met with, she called me about a job. She was like, "Can you start on a reception job?" And I was like, "I can't tomorrow, but I can the next day, because that's when I'm home." And she was like, "No, sorry, like it needs to be after that." And so she was like, they need to start on the Monday. So I was like, "Okay, cool, can't do it." And then she was like, "Oh, I've actually just moved into a new office, so I need someone to help with sort of pouring drinks, just setting things up. Like, would you want it?" She was like, "I know it's a bit of like a shitty job, but do you want to do it?" I was like, "Yeah, go on then, why not?" So I literally got off the flight that morning, and then that afternoon went there, and I was like pouring drinks, and all the clients thought I was part of the team. And so like done that for like 3 days, and then she was like, "I'm going to get you a job when I go on that leave. You're going to come and join and work for me." And I was like, "Okay, like cool." And then went and done like a little stint at CBA.
So you fell into it then?
Yeah, and then she called me and was like, "I'm pregnant." She's like, "You're going to start with me in a few months." I was like, "Lovely." And and then I think I was there for 2 years.
It was an agency?
Yeah, that was an agency, office support as well.
Yeah.
And just really enjoyed it. And then Lotus was calling next.
Yeah.
And now, almost a year into a consultant role. And
I thought you were going to say a year into Lotus. I was like, well, that's not true.
No, 2.5 years.
I was going to say,
2.5 years.
That's 2.5. I feel like you're one of those people who feels like you've been here since day one. Like it's been 8 years next month.
When I started, it was like the rebuild.
Yes,
as well.
True. Yeah, post-COVID.
So
Post-COVID rebuild.
One of the fake OGs.
Fake OGs. 2.0 OGs.
Yeah.
And with recruitment, I mean, obviously it's so full of its highs and lows and ups and downs, and it is the bloody roller coaster. It's the roller coaster. But what, like for you, like what are the biggest things aside from, I mean, obviously you're talking about the fulfillment of placing people in roles, and there's obviously the impact that you have in the roles that we do, but in terms of like the highs that have kept you, because obviously you have to build so much resilience in the lows that you obviously have inevitably in recruitment. So what are the bits for you that have sort of attracted you to it as a role, and I suppose the industry as well? I feel like you're being interviewed by me now.
You're catching me on a high week, so it's all going to be positive from here.
No tears.
So I think like being in the thing that drove me to the temp recruitment, because in my old job it was both temp and perm. I think the thing that drove me to the temp was just working. I know obviously we still place like Australian citizens and residents, and they're fabulous as well, but just that drive. I've been that working holiday visa. I've been here. I met with a million recruiters, and the experience, like everyone was pleasant, but you get sort of forgotten about, and when you're looking for a job, like you take it really personally. And so I think that's one thing that kind of really stood out to me with Lotus is the candidate care and staying in touch with people, even if you've not got something, building that relationship with them letting them know that you're going to help them. And I think for me, that's like the main element of my job. And obviously there's other elements as well, but just helping like expats that come over and don't have work, and just being able to like be like, I can help, and like resonate with them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
No,
of course.
Yeah.
It's I feel like that was exactly because I was on a temp desk as well back in the day, a few generations ago. But exactly that, like I absolutely loved like everyone's story. I think you have to be nosy to be in recruitment, and I was always so nosy of everyone's story. I was like, what got you here? What brought you here? And everyone has a different story, whether it's getting together with someone or breaking up with someone or friends or career or just whatever it is. I love the nosiness of it, and I always loved being able to relate to those people as well.
And I think for me, it's like I love helping people. Like I've always just been that naturally kind of like the host that will go, oh, I'll get you this, I'll get you that. And so I think being able to help them like is something that I enjoy. Like it's one of like the things. What's the leadership?
You could start being a bit more of a host in the office. I think we'll see what side of it she claims to have.
I think the water cooler's empty, Chloe.
That's not my job.
I'm the host.
Do you hear that? Not in my job description. I'm hearing some contradictions, Chloe Jones.
No, I'm joking. But yeah, maybe not so much hosting anymore. Once I've got a big house. I'll have you over for a dinner party.
I love that Iona's fishing for an invite, a hosting invite. No, you absolutely are that person, and you're the first person to put your hand up for training, and the first person to support candidates and come up with a new idea and run processes. And so that makes total sense that that's the part of the role. What about you, Iona? Obviously, you had an idea at the beginning of what the good bits were going to be, but once you get into it, it's obviously, I feel like even talking about the highs and lows, to interrupt myself, you're so steady, as we spoke about this the other week, but you're such a steady personality. It's like you don't go through the absolute erratic highs and lows that some of the rest of us, not naming names, myself absolutely included, go through. But yeah, within that, what are the bits that you really relish about it?
Yeah, I think just going off like that sort of steadiness, I suppose it comes with experience. I genuinely do think, and obviously you're quite experienced, so everyone's different. But for me, like,
but still a mental case.
But it didn't take me long in recruitment to kind of just sort of like, I'm a problem solver. I don't spend ages stewing on something. I don't think something bad's happened. It's the end of the world. Like I just kind of think, well, that's not ideal, but let's move on. And it's the way that I like to teach my team as well. Like if they come to me upset about something that's happened, like it's recruitment, if we dwell on it for too long, we're going to have a nightmare. So I'm just like, okay, that's fine. Like, what can we do now? And like, I am very level like that. I've probably become almost a bit numb to recruitment, but it works because I feel like I can find a solution to a problem quicker because I don't act irrationally. So there's that as well. But I mean, recruitment, I just like definitely like the buzz you get. I'm very driven by that, and I can't really imagine sort of just any other job where I can't strive to achieve a goal because I work best towards targets. Independent. Like I need something to strive towards. I think I'd be bored out of my mind in another job.
I completely agree, and I absolutely love the variety that this job has, and oh my god, running a business as well, but like there's so much to it. I think all of us, like running desks is running a business. Like you run a business, like we all run businesses under the guise of the broader Lotus business, and I think that brings so much to it that it constantly challenges you. I haven't managed how to have the same level of steadiness as Iona, but I will look to her for
teaching me your way.
Individual coaching.
I feel like it might be innate, but thank you. But no, you're exactly right, and I think that's what makes you such a good manager as well, is because there is that consistency. That's what we want in leadership. It's what we want in the people that we look up to, is that ability to be consistent and to be able to weather the storms whilst other people are flapping. It's obviously a very important aspect of it. So you're in the right role. Good to know. With regards to, I'll come back to you, Chloe. I feel for me, with the role that I have, with being a recruiter, and then obviously in owning Lotus and going through this whole mad journey and having a different job every 6 months, there's been so much personal growth. Like I feel like I have learned so much about myself. I feel like it's been just the biggest container of like I suppose, self-development or just understanding yourself better? Like, do you feel with recruitment, or what do you feel about, whether it's recruitment or your life as an expat or just over the last few years, like is there any growth that you've had? Is there any sort of awareness you have of like, whoa, moving to the other side of the world, setting up a life, being in this mad career that we all for some reason have chosen? What growth have you taken from it?
Yeah, so when I before I moved out here, I was still living with my mum and dad. Like, so this is the first time I've ever moved out of home. And so it was like such a scary thing, but I think I've always had it in me that I wanted to be this independent person, but I lacked it. Like, it was one of those things that I had my moments, and then I'm like, fall back into like mum's arms, like, oh, help.
Yeah.
And so I think coming over here and setting up my life, and you kind of forget like how much of a big deal it is, you know what I mean? And so I feel like that's for me like a huge personal growth. And I was having a conversation with someone that when you go home and like seeing your parents, and I end up staying back at home with my mum, like you feel like you take like a million steps back.
Oh, well, you regress
like,
so much.
What, like, what's happened? Like, you know, and I feel like that's like something that I'm really like conscious of whenever I go home, like just remember that's just temporarily.
Absolutely.
But in recruitment, sort of how I've grown, I mean, this time last year, it was, I never want to be a consultant. And never want to sort of have that sales client element. Like I've always like enjoyed speaking with people. Like I am naturally an extrovert, but to speak to people that you don't know want to speak to you, like don't want to speak to you, is just like, ooh, like scary to me. And so I think sort of moving into that role, and I remember thinking through my head, like, what am I doing? Am I making a huge mistake? Like, this isn't me. But it's generally like helped me grow so much, and now it's like a part of my job that I really enjoy. So
don't you think it builds resilience outside of work as well? Like it changes your character in it makes you just so much more able to handle crap.
less sensitive to like people, like, and things that even like people that you know, like you're just not as sensitive. You're kind of like, oh, okay, like that's not it's not always you problem, you know?
And I think that the perspective that comes with that, and I think exactly to your point around moving over here, like it is a big deal. And I think we also, in the industry that we're in, we're surrounded by so many expats so frequently that you end up meeting so many like-minded souls. But the one thing they have in common is that like sense of adventure, like the willingness to uproot your life and to really go and start a whole new world at the other side of the world. And so you end up finding and forming these, and this is my experience, of course, and I know it's both of yours as well, but you find these like-minded souls that, whether it's growing up in your small town, whether it's a city, whether it's wherever you came from, like there might have been a handful of those types of people, but there'll also be a million people who never left. Whereas I think when you have all of those people who want to move to the other side of the world, want to like start afresh, like have a new life and have these careers, it's amazing the bonds you can form and the closeness that you can have with people as well.
100%.
It's a good way of finding like-minded humans.
I find them in recruitment. That's where mine have come from. Like I'm 30 this month, next month.
Oh, exciting.
And I am going over to New Zealand for it because that's where I spent the majority of my 20s. And I thought about like the people that are kind of celebrating it with me over there, and I'm like, most of these people are from my old job in recruitment, because I've never had like, you know, the like-mindedness, like you say, like the laughs that you have, like everyone like kind of comes together, because it is a hard job, and at times it can be really draining. But if you're doing it together as a team and you all feel what each other feel, and then you end up just growing these like really close bonds.
So true.
100%. It's and it's, I know even looking at, I've been here, as I said, nearly 13 years, a very long time. Like a lot of my core friendships are friends from like my first recruitment job. And it's like, that is literally a testament to exactly that. Just the fact that it's, finding your humans, which is nice. Same question to you, Iona. Personal growth. What have you learned about yourself in both the expat side and just the last few years of, I guess, I mean, it's a mad time anyway, isn't it? Coming to your late 20s and figuring out yourself more. But what have you learned, if anything?
Look, I just always knew it all.
She had a clipboard at 21. She knew it all then.
No, I think I definitely have like really learned over the years to like empathize more with other people, and I would actually think now that I have a lot of empathy, but maybe like in my early 20s before I started traveling, like it was more like about me, and like we can all laugh and say it's not still like that. But no, I definitely think that I've definitely learned to empathize, and although I've never really had a problem with confidence, as I'm sure you both know, but I think I have really grown in confidence in my career. Like I feel really confident when I'm sort of helping others. I think that's where I grow, where I really find the most growth, like how much I enjoy helping, coach, mentor. When my team come to me with problems and they need help because they genuinely aren't sure what to do, like that makes me feel amazing. Like I love to give back to them and to help them. Thank you.
Yeah, because I feel like you're again with you, you're anyone's like I've got an issue, you're like come to me, you'll do the training for us weekly. Like you've been amazing since you started.
Maybe it's childhood trauma because I'm from a family of 7 children. It's like, do you want me?
So you're from a family of 7 children. You've just taken over a team, meaning that you have about 7 or 8 people underneath you. So there's something in that, something in that you being used to.
I just wasn't going to pop them out.
You'll inherit them through the workplace instead.
Oh,
no, that's amazing, and I feel like exactly as Chloe said, like you're in the right job for it, and it's such a key part of any development, right? Like that ability to be able to empathize, and people are, what I've realized over the years is that people have empathy and I suppose a sensitivity around whether it's social dynamics or empathizing with people. They have it in such different degrees, and some people are so high in it and some people are low in it, and of course you can learn it, but at the same time having the ability to be able to adjust your style as you get older, whether it's in social circumstances or in work, to be able to work with the people who have the varying different styles. Like it's absolutely crucial. Like you can't just treat everyone as a one size fits all. You are how you are, and then assume that everyone else is going to be exactly pitched at the same level in terms of empathy or EQ. Like it just isn't going to work. So it's a very important one to have hyper awareness around, or have EQ around. So it's a really good point. The very nature of this podcast, as I said earlier, when work isn't work, like the very idea kind of sprung into my head after COVID, when I felt so strongly that I wanted to cling onto the learnings that came from COVID. I don't want to harp on about the pandemic, which the WHO has now officially ended. It is reopening. Get it back, get it. But at the same time, there's so many lessons that have come with that. And the biggest one for me has been around work-life balance and hybrid working, and the ability to sort of spend, I suppose, more time at home, but also just a whole new version of how we work, and particularly in our industry, which would have been historically very old school in how little flexibility we would have been given. With that in mind, balancing sort of the success, because both of you are very successful in your roles, with the wellness piece. Iona, I'll start with you. It makes me think about our wellness day, the fact that you said, or we used to call it our Menti B day, or mental break. We only take our wellness day when we're having a mental breakdown, and you rarely do have mental breakdowns, if ever. So you weren't taking them. But no, in terms of balancing the wellness, what do you do to look after yourself? What do you do to sort of keep yourself sane within the madness of being a young human with a career?
Do you know, it's so funny because like I am genuinely so lucky, and I know that I have been, especially like because it's become so like such a good thing to obviously talk openly about your mental health and everything like that. I personally haven't really suffered with any sort of mental health issues, and like I touch wood, which I'm literally doing right now, because you wouldn't wish it upon anyone. So like I think for me, it's more about, there's not a huge amount that throws me off balance, and we kind of discussed that, like that is the truth. But I think that it's more about making sure that I can help others who maybe do struggle a little bit and do struggle and dwell on things, like how can I support them with how they actually balance their success with their wellness, because there's always going to be conflicting things with that as well. But I do try and like, as much as I can, because I am one of the lucky ones in that sense, try and like project that onto others and be like, look, it's not that big a deal, it's fine, like we can cope. So with my wellness days, I like to take them for
moving house,
and partners' birthdays and different things like that. But you know, look, I've just taken on a new role, so talk to me again in 6 months. I might be having a mental breakdown then. So let's see.
We'll
hopefully trying to break you.
I know, no, stop. We want to keep you all healthy and well.
Yeah.
And it's funny because even speaking about that is a good thing to speak about, because so many people are now more able to speak openly and vulnerably about mental health, which is amazing. But at the same time, not everyone experiences it. Not everyone is anxious. Not everyone is experiences the need to sort of, as you say, kind of balance themselves out. And it's amazing. And you are very lucky. And again, teach us your ways.
But I think it has helped with my success, because I can be quite pragmatic.
Yes.
Like, I can really look at a situation and I can step away from it and just go, like, you know, it's not that big a deal. And it doesn't mean that I care any less, but it just means that I can look at it holistically and say, right, okay, well, here we go. And that does help. And
that is the word I would use to describe you. Like, pragmatic is always the first word that comes to mind. I feel like that's bang on in terms of your outlook, which is a very good outlook to have in business and in life. Same question. Do you have the same answer, Chloe?
Absolutely. I feel like a bit of a fraud answering this one, so I don't know if I do balance it. But no,
but it's never nailed.
I'm still learning, but it's one of those ones, like I've always been so into my like health and fitness, like I've always been a morning person. And as soon as I fall out of that routine, that's when like I start feeling unwell, I start feeling anxious, I start crying at work. Like, so I just know for me, like, and you know, you get in the battle with yourself of like, I don't want to get out of bed this morning, I don't want to go to the gym, I don't want to do this, I just want to stay in bed. But I know, like, when I do that, I'm a much better human. Like, so much better. Like this, I think. When I only got back from the UK like 3 weeks ago, and it's been non-stop, like 30ths, like just weekends away, and even like weeknight dinners with drinks that are unnecessary. And that's so not me. I'm such a like homebody. I
was shocked when I saw you out on Instagram of a school night. What's she doing out of the house?
Absolutely not. And so I feel like my health is like, since I've been back, it's just been like not good. Like I've just been going down, and I'm like, it's all self-inflicted. I need to sort myself out. So like, I think I went for a walk on Friday and I was like, right, I'm turning my life around. And since then I've been hitting 10k steps a day, been to the gym, and I'm thriving.
But it's such a hard thing, isn't it? Like, we all know, like, there's like the balance is the balance, but it's a very hard thing to achieve. Like, you're never going to be in perfect balance, but it's about knowing, having the tools, the mechanisms, and knowing the things that make you feel better, and being like, okay, cool. There's always going to be moments of excess. There's always going to be moments of travel. There's always going to be impact to the routine, but knowing that you have the routines to fall back on, or the helpful things to fall back on makes a difference.
What I was going to say is, I feel like that's the word consistent. Like, I don't feel like I'm ever consistent. Like, I'm either like, it's funny because whenever I'm feeling like super happy, everything's going well, I'm like, okay, when's going to be the crash? Like, I'm always waiting for the crash.
I can relate to that.
I just feel like that's me. Like, I just don't feel like I'm never just like
completely steady the whole way through. But I think as well, like, as women, like, we do also have hormonal cycles. Like, I think that is different to men. Like, men have
but I do feel like I'm lucky in
24-hour cycles, and we have 20 we have one month 24.
But I do feel like what was that? I've lost my train of thought, never mind.
But it's true, and it's like that is also a part of like being a woman in the workforce, is that you will have a cycle, and that you will, like, I know that my moods are, and moods is the wrong term, but like my swings or how I'm feeling, my highs, my lows, my whatever, and it absolutely comes from like the time of my cycle. And so even having awareness around that is super important, I think, in the workplace. As an individual, you don't need everyone else to know, but for self-regulation, I think it's important.
For sure. And what I was going to say was, it's come back to me, but I'm lucky that I have the tools to know. Like, I never drive myself into like a bad mental health state. It would be like, okay, I'm feeling a bit anxious, a bit crappy. Like, okay, sort yourself out. I know. Exactly. So I feel like I'm lucky in that way that I recognise it and do something about it.
Exactly the same. And I think that comes with getting older. I think you have a better ability to be able to identify what actually makes you feel good, and what can get you back on track faster. If there are times of, like, I know, whenever work is like completely hectic and manic, like, I'll pull back on social things. Like, I won't do anything during the week. Like, it'll be very focused on quiet weekends. Like, you can't burn the candle at both ends, or at least I don't think you can in your 30s, because I think if you...
Oh wait, I was going to say maybe you're in your 40s. No?
Absolutely. Can I revoke her most recent promotion?
Edit.
The rudeness. 35, Iona, I'll have you know. Not quite past it yet. My final question to both of you, again, ties in with kind of the nature of this podcast. If people who are listening, they're not loving what they do, they're feeling like they're in a rut with work, you guys are obviously exposed to so many candidates, you've obviously placed so many people into amazing roles, so you're very close to this on a daily basis. But if someone isn't loving work, they're in a position where they're just not not vibing it, what would you recommend? It's been so interesting in this podcast. Some people literally say speak to your manager, work it out. So other people say leave immediately. Like, it's such a varied response. But what advice would you have?
Yeah, I was going to say I'll refrain from just saying quit. But no, like, honestly, I feel like the main thing is like finding out firstly what it is you're not enjoying, and then like figuring out what your strengths are, what elements of the role you do enjoy. If there's none, like, yeah, definitely quit. Like, if everything's negative, but like do a list of pros and cons and figure out what it is. If it is something that you can speak to your manager about and have change, then absolutely go and do that. But if it's like nothing's serving you happiness, then it's definitely worth like finding out where your strengths are, because I think if you use what your strengths are in your day-to-day, then that's where you're going to thrive more.
100%. You need to feel in flow. You need to feel like what you're doing is aligned with what you're actually good at. Otherwise, you're just going to be pushing up against something, and it's not going to feel enjoyable, and it's going to feel stressful. 100% agree. Iona?
I feel like I'm probably going to be following on from a bit of a theme of what I've said before, but I think it's like, and it's easier said than done, so I do understand that, but I think really giving yourself a little bit of a reality check, taking a step back, looking at the situation, knowing that your full life, your full source of happiness or your full source of sadness doesn't just come from your job. You know, there's so much more to your life. There's so much happiness that can be found outside. If you can take a step back, look at it, relax your mindset, change your perception on the role overall, stop making it take over 100% of your capacity, and then you can relax more into your role, and you'll start to see positive changes, and you'll start to you'll get results, but from a more relaxed perspective, and you can see like that you'll actually start to relax into your role more, and I feel like that really helps.
100%. It's neurological. It's like, I think that is such good advice, and it's definitely advice to that question that has never really been given on this podcast. And I think it's exactly that. It's mindset shift. It's like the more our brains are negative leaning in terms of what we want to take in, and the more you sit in a place, it's like we were talking about in the leadership training this week, from being in a place of like, are you above the line or below the line? If you're above the line, you're in a place of openness and curiosity and learning and creativity, and if you're below the line, you're in a place of blame and kind of negativity, and you can't see solutions, you can't see past the noise that's going on. So I think that to be able to see things in a different light, and as you said, come up with solutions, like you kind of need to take yourself above the line and just go, calm, what's the reality? Because we do feed so much negativity into things when we're that way, like when we're in that mindset. So if you can shift that, and that always isn't to do with work. So
exactly.
And I was going to say, like, when it's, if you do take that step back, it could be like maybe you're not happy in your job because you're not looking after your health, or like you're in a bad relationship, or you don't enjoy where you live, and like you've got to really think about those elements outside of that and go, okay, what is actually not serving me? And because it might just be that, okay, you're not getting enough sleep, you're not taking care of yourself enough. If you've done that, would you enjoy your job more? Essentially.
100%. It's completely holistic, right? Like, we can never just tunnel vision, hone in on one single aspect of our lives and expect it's like our health. Like, you can never, it's not completely just one thing. It's always going to be this symbiotic relationship that in your life, all of the different pillars, friends, family, nutrition, exercise, work, like it all ties in together. Rest, holidays, whatever, meditation, all of the different facets, like they will end up somehow being tied together.
Like at university, I will remember this, that I used to sit outside an exam hall, and everyone around me would be in a blind panic.
That was me.
Trying to read, it doesn't surprise me. Trying to read your notes and everything. You would go into the exam hall, and everyone would
Love the
sit
way you
there.
remember this.
Yeah, like they would sit there and they would just like the first half an hour of the exam was just wasted because they're panicking, and because they're panicking, they can't recite what knowledge they've learned and put it onto the paper because they can't relax their head. Whereas I used to just, I don't know how, but I used to just go and really relax, and straight away the words would just pour onto the paper, and I used to think,
Just like the Buddha.
well, I always, the thing is that I always used to pass. I was by far not the most academic.
Yeah.
But because I was relaxed, I think I performed better in exams.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is true. It's very, very sage advice. And I think for anyone who is struggling in work or not loving it, or for whatever reason bumping up against their own like way of working, it's a really good approach. And very helpful, I'm sure, to anyone that is listening.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much. And if you have, congratulations on making it all the way through. I absolutely love that conversation. Thank you both so much. I obviously work so closely with both of you to be able to chat in a very different way, and something, I was going to say something about, not about work, but it is entirely about recruitment as well.
Yeah.
But it has been
On a
lovely.
personal level.
But thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for listening.
Thank you.
This podcast is sponsored by Lotus People Recruitment. We are an award-winning Sydney-based recruitment agency with a genuine human-first and innovative approach. Lotus People are disrupting the recruitment industry by placing quality and service at the heart of all we do. Recruiting roles across HR, talent, business support, and much more. Head to our website today for more information if you are a job seeker or an employer hiring staff. We're at lotuspeople.com.au.